And what we found from our camera work was that of the ones that were taken by predators, 97% was coyotes. There was only actually one instance of any other predator successfully taking eggs. And this is what it looks like. This was a huge, massive study to try and do. It's very hard. So this is infrared video. That's why it's grainy and black and white at night. It's a pair of geese that are tending to their nest. And that's what it looks like when a coyote moves in. So they don't defend it, and it takes it's only a second. Now, I think, yeah. So it'll take an egg, and it'll leave. And in some cases, they'll eat it. And then the other thing we discovered is that they'll also cache them. So they'll dig a hole, and they'll take the eggs, and they'll bury them. In this case, the geese are defending their nest. So you can tell it's not a coyote. You can't see the predator yet. You'll see it in a second. It's a raccoon. So they repel the raccoon. That's the same pair. And then watch when a coyote comes. See, dramatically different. So coyotes are really the only predators able to do this. And so they'll do this all night. They'll take each one of those eggs. In this case, that's an egg that we have cabled to the ground. So we just have cable. Coyotes have very soft mouths, and they don't like to break the egg. And so it'll spend hours on that thing. This is actually from the documentary. This is that coyote that I showed you early on, 567. She was carrying a goose egg while they were filming. That's Shane. And then she actually gave up the egg for this flattened squirrel. So not all of them are that smart. So you actually looked at it trying to figure out how can I take both of them. Yeah. And so this is the coyote influence. So what we could do with all the data that they collected from the goose population and our work from the coyotes, we could actually do a huge matrix modeling to look at the growth rate of the goose population before and after coyotes. And so that top curve represents the growth rate of the goose population prior to coyotes moving into the area, which was growing at about 20%. Again, because there's no predators, and because they don't migrate from the Chicago area. With the coyote predation of the nest, as well as some slight predation on goslings and adults, coyotes drop that down to a 5% growth rate. So, at least based on our estimates. And then we're looking at white-tailed deer currently, as of right now. In fact, next month we'll be going to the fawns. They should be dropping. And for example, this is Poplar Creek again. Each one of those colored dots represents alpha animals from these different packs. You've already seen this map. That's just with satellite data. Huge density of coyotes. Our question was, what can deer, the deer population is also quite high, how many fawns can actually survive in that kind of landscape? And so that's where we've been spending most of our work. Each one of those represents the territories of the pack. And of course, the densities of coyotes, what we're showing now, it's about 4 coyotes per square kilometer. It should be about 0.5 for a typical coyote population. So it's pretty high. So we go in, when they have fawns, we get to the fawns within a few hours of their birth, ideally. And we put a really light radio collar on them. We're very careful about how we do this. It's very difficult to do. And then we get out of there. We only are there for less than 5 minutes. And then we're able to monitor those fawns. And what we found was that, and this was early, but the patterns have held. So out of like 45 fawns, 29 were taken, were killed, and it was always coyotes. In fact, coyotes were the single cause of death of fawns. And the other thing that's interesting is that all of the mortality for fawns takes place in the first 18 days of life. And then there is some annual variation across years. I'm not going to go into that. Here's just a graph illustrating that. So each one of these bars represents the number of animals that died in their age post-birth. All of the blue are predation. That's all the predation is coyote. There's no other predators there. So you can see that all of that predation, all the death is taking place, again, in those first 3 weeks. And then after that, it's almost 100% survival. Wow. So they're having an impact, but we're still in the process of looking at that. And then finally, this is our current work, behavioral syndromes, and so we're doing this in a variety of different ways. But one way that we're experimenting with these animals, and so one experiment is to put out novel objects. And so in this case, it's a yard gnome. So the yard gnome goes there and put cameras there to actually see how coyotes respond to that. And if they're collared, we also have a data logger there that will tell us which animal that is that's actually approaching the novel object. And so they respond in different ways. It's not just coyotes that respond to these novel objects. We have other predators out there. So it draws a lot of attention. So there's a coyote sniffing one. So that's a certain kind of behavior. So we're trying to partition bold coyotes from shy coyotes. And so that's one way to do that. So this is a bold coyote sniffing that animal and eventually marking it. So that's bold. So there's one pooping. That's another bold sign. This is a good example. That's another novel object. And here's a pack of our coyotes, our urban coyotes, coming by. And you'll notice individual variation within the same pack and how they're responding. One of them even nips it. So that's what we're trying to measure. It's extremely difficult to do, but we're the first to try and do this for wild coyotes. The other thing that we do is when we capture them, we have, let me see, sorry. We have a variety of different tests we put them through, and this is a hand test. I think it will.
Why are you testing them with novel objects? What are you trying to ascertain?
Their response to it. We're trying to separate bold coyotes from shy coyotes. So bold ones will approach it, shy ones will not approach. So that's what we're trying to do. Shoot, I don't know if this is going to work. Shoot. If you don't mind, I want you to see this. It will show up. I can do it this way. So the other thing that when we capture them, we record a variety of different things, and this is what it'll look like. And so one of the ways that we test their boldness or shyness is by presenting them with a hand. Maybe.
So are bold coyotes more likely to be really aggressive and problematic?
1 second. So we see that's a hand test. So again, we have expendable graduate students, and we record the behavior of the animal. So again, coyotes out in the natural environment, and then the same coyotes when we capture them, how they respond. And that's a very typical response. Very, very rarely do they ever actually bite it. And that's where we can actually carefully standardize, so it's always the same individual doing that, same place, the same amount of time that the hand is in there, so we can carefully record that. So this is also a very typical response. So that would not be bold, that would be pretty shy. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that's in captivity, or at least that's in a stressful environment. So that may or may not be a good indication of how bold they are. So I think I'm essentially done here. I just want to point out that these animals are what we call apex predators. So they're having predator effects, but we're only just scratching the surface of what kind of effects they're having out there. It's extremely hard to do. It takes many years. This is just the tip of the iceberg after 17 years. Unfortunately, most agencies don't fund studies of the positive impacts of predators. They usually fund the negative impacts. And then just, this is the last critter, this is the last slide. So this is a recent critter cam video. This illustrates just how we're learning things almost every day. So this animal is going to be eating certain prey item, natural prey, kind of natural prey, and it did this all night. and it had never been documented for coyotes before. See if you can identify if this works. This is at night, and this is during a storm. So there's actually rain, so it's muddy. There just ate one. You have to watch carefully. You'll notice the mud in between the toes. So there was another one.
Frog.
There's another one. Right, earthworms. It ate earthworms all night. And so earthworms don't show up in scats, right? And they didn't show up in our isotope stuff because we didn't know, we can only put their prey items that we know of, we have to sample those. So now we have to add earthworms to our sampling. But this is just another example of how we are learning new things about these animals all the time. The funding for this is mainly Cook County Animal Rabies Control and the Forest Preserve District of Cook County, and of course, McGraw. And if you're interested in this stuff, Urban Coyote Research is our website, where you can find a lot of the material, especially our publications. Thanks.
Thank you.